So I really do love blue, Marsha. Honestly, it's slightly crazy. So I want to say, Flavilla's in the room. Hi, Flav. I want to say a massive thank you, first of all, to the Global Tech Advocates team, in particular Daniela, for helping to organize it. She's going to be supporting me in the background with
just a voice in the void.
She's going to be supporting me in the background with slides, etc. And I can't see you guys apart from what you put in the chat. So I need you guys to be putting things in the chat, but also give me grace. I'm only one person. I can't read the chat and read my notes and read the slides, and also, so just give me grace as we go through this, all right? We're going to be talking about crafting your personal manifesto for 2024 and beyond. And if you don't mind, we're going to go to our first slide. And I want to start with a question. Question for you. What is the weather in your mind? A lot of people ask people, like, how are you? You know, like, how are you feeling today? All the rest of it. And I think it was probably about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, a friend of mine asked me the question, what is the weather in your mind? And it got me thinking about how I genuinely felt that day. And so I want you to put in the chat what the weather is in your mind. Now, you can see me in this big, chunky jumper because in the UK, the temperatures are ridiculous. It is minus ridiculousness, and I'm not impressed. But that being said, the weather in my mind actually feels quite calm. It feels a bit like a spring day with, like, you know, there being a light breeze and a day full of opportunities. That's how my mind feels. So I'd love to know, what is the weather in your mind? We've got clear and bright. Love that. We've got foggy with some breaks of blue. Aisha said it is sunny here, still in holiday mode. Sis, take me. Like, I want to get back to holiday mode. Mine is bright and sunny, clear skies, sunny with fresh breeze every now and again. It's a bit cloudy today. I hear that. Always expecting sunshine. Oh, I love that for you, June. In my mind, it's foggy, cloudy, grey. I want to feel like a bright spring day. That's cool. That's cool. Let's own where we are. Risk of hail. Mark, trust me, yesterday, my mind was exactly the same. Exactly the same. So I want you guys to consider the fact that we're in the season, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, of winter. And so it's a restorative season. It's a season where we are trying to, I say we, nature in particular, is resting, it's restoring, it's rejuvenating before it comes back out in spring with all sorts of newness. It feels very much like every January we are asked to come fresh with new ideas and what we want to do, new you, new year, new everything. And it's like, whoa, like, let's actually calm down. Sometimes it's not new you, sometimes it's not new year, sometimes it's not. I personally, my birthday is December 31st, so it is literally a brand new year for me at the start of every year. But I am conscious that it's not necessarily the same for everyone else. And I actually said today in a post on Insta that I'm going into this year with a lot more ease and a lot more trust for myself. So I'd like to invite you to embrace this session with ease. There's no right or wrong way in which you embrace and engage with this session. As I said, I can't see your faces, so please do engage in the chat. Love that for you and me. And thank you for the belated birthday wishes. I know I'm a young 38 now. Whoop, whoop. And let's get into it. So let's get into the next slide, please. So I am Ramat Tejani, and today we are going to delve into a journey of self-discovery and empowerment. And we're going to explore the transformative power within our vulnerabilities. This workshop isn't just about learning one thing or another. It's about experiencing what we've been through and how we can take some of those experiences to help us navigate whatever life is going to throw us moving forward. As your workshop host, facilitator, it's important that you know that I am on this journey with you. I am a strong believer in the power of self-mastery. I believe that we have to master ourselves in order to master the world around us. If you don't master yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice, your current self and your future self. So I want you to be open as I share ideas with you in this session. I want you to take notes. This is being recorded, but take notes where you need to, but don't feel obliged that you have to. This is a journey about individual reflection, but also thinking about how we can lean on others to help support us as we reflect on where we want to be and where we want to get to in the future. I think that's all for this slide. Let me tell you a little bit more about who I am on the next slide. So a few things about me. I am your Chief Encouragement Officer. I am here to encourage you to do whatever it is you want to do, whatever it is you feel you need to do. I was born and raised in East London by way of Ghana. Both my parents are Ghanaian. I hold a Ghanaian passport, so I hold like Ghana very strongly in my heart, right? So I was in Ghana recently and someone was like, "Oh, where are you from?" I was like, "I'm from Ghana." They're like, "Well, no, you're not." I was like, "Ma'am, I have a Ghanaian passport. When they throw me off this island called the UK, I'll be headed straight back home." So I am a very proud Ghanaian, but I'm born and raised in East London, still live in East. I have a background in marketing and I've been doing marketing strategy in some way, shape or form for almost 20 years. I'm a TEDx speaker. I did a TEDx, my first TEDx last year. Very excited about that. I love community. There's something about the way in which we can grow together and grow in community that makes a really big difference to the way in which I show up in spaces. So I'm here to support communities and help build communities. I love a story, probably down to my marketing piece, but storytelling is in my blood. I'm a pocket cheerleader. I'm here to encourage you, as I said, to be the truest version of yourself, not the best version of yourself, the truest. I'm occasionally a podcaster. Like I need to release some episodes I recorded time ago. So that's why I said occasional. I'm a host, facilitator, presenter, and I also happen to be a woman in tech. The fact that we are here for Global Tech Advocates Women in Tech is really important to me. I've been a woman in tech for some time now, and I love the fact that I am a woman in tech, even though I'm not necessarily technical. If you ask me to code, I can do a little piece here and there, but I think it's important that we take up space in advocating for our titles as women in tech. Many women that are in tech that are not technical refuse to call themselves women in tech, and I'm like, ma'am, that's just not how it works. Not when I'm around anyway. So that's who I am in a nutshell. I'm also a whole lot of other things, but you know, for today, I felt like this list was more than enough. So let's go on to the next slide. And I want to talk about what we are doing here today. The lady you see in these pictures alongside me is Hajia Mary Tejani, MBE. She is my mother. She is mother, wife, side-eye queen, role model, auntie to everyone. Like literally everyone's like, "Oh, my auntie." And I'm like, guys, you need to chill out. It's my mom, right? She was my pattern clash connoisseur. She is the first to be wearing stripes with polka dots with every, like, yeah, I don't know, don't get it, but that is her. She's also was my favorite cheerleader, and she was my chief encouragement officer. She is the reason that I'm here today to talk to you about the power of a personal manifesto. I lost her 3 years ago now, just over 3 years ago. And when I think about the power of a personal manifesto, I finally wrote my personal manifesto about, it was in the summer of 2020. And by November of 2020, she had passed away. Now, I didn't realize just how important having a personal manifesto would be to me until I lost my mum. And so I'm here to kind of help you all see the transformative power of a personal manifesto, and to remind you that like having a personal manifesto can really help you get through it, the ups, the downs, like everything. Like a personal manifesto for me has like, it's grounded me. Now I have a whole TED talk about the transformative power of a personal manifesto. So please go watch my TED talk, get my views up. Whoop, whoop. But what I want to do now is I want to read to you my personal manifesto, so you can get a view as to what it is. I carry it with me everywhere. So I'm about to read it to you now. So, the seasons will come and go. Growth, like time, never stops. The growth the world sees is nurtured by you focusing on internal needs. Accept an invitation to explore your mindset, and then you do the things. See the good in and around you. There is so much to appreciate in the foundations that brought you here. Embrace the joy in this journey. In doing so, you'll find what feels good. Make sure you do more of that. Dig deeper. Explore why these things light you up. Revel in the small joys. Recognize your journey comes in all its guises. Nothing blooms all the time. When you need to, pause, breathe and reflect, rest and recenter. You can do more by doing less. Clarity opens you up to the possibilities and the question, what do I want? This journey is yours. It can't be navigated by anyone else's compass. With curiosity as your guide, make space to wonder and wonder. Take what's already here, acknowledge what's been, and through it all, you'll keep on growing. Now, I read my personal manifesto every single day. Whether I read it out loud, whether I read it to myself silently, whatever it is, it's my grounding piece. And I want the same for you in some way, shape, or form. I do want to acknowledge, though, before we kind of like dive a little deeper, that for some people, when I spoke to some people about doing this workshop, they were like, oh, isn't that just like vision boarding? And I was like, no, it's different. Like, it's to me, it's different. Like, they're complementary. Like, let's not get twisted, but it is different. So I want to go through why I think it is different before I go on, because if I can find it, because I think it's important that people recognize that one isn't better than the other, but for me, one has served me more than the other. So when I think about vision boards, I think about us visualizing things for the future. I think about us thinking about goals and things that we might want to have in the future. Absolutely fine. We need them. I've got my own vision boards, which I do, and I revisit probably every season. I try to revisit my vision board. When it comes to a personal manifesto, that it's Aisha's got it right. It's something that is written. And you can have words on your vision boards. And to be fair, your personal manifesto could be made up of images that you bring to words. But it is something that is written down and something that you can read out loud or to yourself. It's also very aligned to your values and who you are internally as an individual and your core. And your core shouldn't really change. Like, it might change, life might happen, and actually it changes slightly or you adapt slightly. But ultimately, who you are at your core, I don't think changes from when you are a very young child or young individual, because you're shaped by your experiences, right? So when it comes to having a personal manifesto, I see it as a guide. I mentioned in mine, I use the word compass. I really do see it as a compass as to where you are going. Let's go on to the next slide. So there's no right or wrong way as to what a personal manifesto should look like. But I do think that a personal manifesto is comprised of words. Like, it has to be words. It can be pictures if you really like, but put that on your vision board. When it comes to your personal manifesto, it has to be words. It has to be things that ring true to you. There are various versions of personal manifestos. And I say in my TED talk, actually, that if you can't come up with your own, you can borrow other people's. Like, I borrow Beyonce's words all the time to help me. Sometimes I'll be like, nah, you're my personal manifesto, right? And that's okay. There might be one-liners in a book. There might be a passage from your holy scripture. That could be your personal manifesto. It's absolutely up to you. Let's go on to the next slide, please. So I just put these words together because as I was kind of like going through putting slides together, I was like, these are words that really resonate with me as to why it's important that you recognize that this is about you. It's not about the rest of the world. Now, we might leverage some of the knowledge that the rest of the world and people that we know in our world to help support us writing our personal manifestos, but our personal manifestos are exactly that. They are personal to us. I've shared my manifesto with the world. That doesn't mean you have to do the same. And that doesn't mean that anyone else in the world has to resonate with it. In fact, if you don't resonate with it, that is your business, because I resonate with it because it is mine. Everything that I needed to write it came from within me. So I just want you to take a moment to read these different phrases to remind you that it's, as someone wrote in the chat, it's not one size that fits all, right? Like, everyone is different and everyone's on a different journey when it comes to everything, in particular writing or coming up with your personal manifesto. I'll give you a second to take a read of the slide. Okay, let's go on to our next slide. So I wanted to give you some examples of different types of personal manifestos. So like mine is I've like had it printed out. You can't really see it very well, but it's like printed out. It's a long piece of text. There's a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, and it's a really short book. I would recommend everybody read it. It literally takes, well, depending on how fast you read, I can't tell you how long it's going to take you, but it's a very short book. And the premise of it is that there are 4 agreements that he has that he thinks that everyone in the world should follow. This is ultimately a mini manifesto. And these are his 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best. Now, they're really simple statements, but actually they can really hold true for many people at different times. So for him, his personal manifesto is literally 4 sentences. And you can go, he's obviously written a book about it and made it, like, put more detail to it, but it's not a massively long thing. The next slide is a more detailed version of a manifesto. It's by this lady called Bianca Sparincio. I think that's how you pronounce her name. She might come and clap me for saying it wrong. And if that is so, sorry, ma'am, I tried. But I actually want to read this one out loud because I really enjoyed reading this and reading this out when I'm doing workshops with teams. So, you are allowed to take up space. Own who you are and what you want for yourself. Stop downplaying the things that you care about, the hopes you have. Own your passions, your thoughts, your perceptions. Own your fire. Stop putting your worth in the hands of others. Stop letting them decide your value. Own saying no. Saying yes. Own your mood, your feelings. Own your plans, your path, your success. Never back down from expressing yourself, from saying your name proudly. Never stop elbowing your damn way into this big world because you belong here. You matter. It's a very, what's the word? It basically tells you about life, isn't it? It's one of those ones where it's like, it tells you about yourself. It's a really stark reminder of who you are and who you can be. And you could choose to take this and change the word so that it is in present tense. And you say, I am allowed to take up space. I am own who I am and what I want for myself, So I think it's one of those, it's what I wanted to do here is show you that there are different ways of writing a personal manifesto. There's no right or wrong way. And you can also take other people's words and rewrite them to fit your needs when it comes to doing a personal manifesto. A wake up moment. Yeah, exactly that. All right. So next slide. If I was to rewrite my personal manifesto today, there will be 2 quotes essentially that would drive my personal manifesto. The first one is on the next slide, and it says, out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. It's really hard to bounce back after something hard has happened. In my case, it's grief. When I think about grief, it's grief in different ways. It's the grief of losing my mum, but there's other pieces of grief or types of grief that I've had to experience in my past. The grief of losing a job. I, at one point, lost 3 jobs. I was made redundant 3 times in the space of a year. I've lost friends. I've lost familial relationships. There's so much that we we go through and that we lose. And it's in those moments that you can learn so much. So if I was writing my personal manifesto again, this would be one of the quotes that I would really anchor on in trying to explore what is it that I need to remind my future self? What is it that I need to, Ramat in, 2029 needs to be reminded of? And it's this. I have become so much stronger because of all the negative things or all the things that I've been through. And there's that saying that fall down 7 times, you get up 8. And it's yeah, you do keep bouncing back. But every time you bounce back, I bet you bounce back with more strength. I bet you bounce back that little bit stronger and you bounce back knowing so much more. We don't fail at things, we learn things. So this would be the first one. If we can go to the next one. Oh, and I didn't know who wrote it. They said it was Sigmund Freud, but actually people have been oh, he didn't really say that. And so I didn't put the quote. I don't know who did it, who said it originally. But this one, I definitely said it. It was all me. So you can quote me up and down. So when I was at my mum's during COVID at one point, she heard me doing just my usual work, my day-to-day work. And I think I was doing a training session on leadership. And she was like, Ramat, you are brilliant. you're just brilliant. And I was like, I am, babe, aren't I? Like, I actually am. But in order to be brilliant, I often have to be brave. Like, I've had to be brave first. I've had to try things. I've had to do things that I'd never done before in order to be brilliant. So in knowing that every single person on this call currently and who is going to watch this back is brilliant, I also need you all to recognize that you have to be brave in your brilliance, or be brave to access your brilliance. So if I was writing my personal manifesto again, those two quotes would be the things that I have kind of like front and center as I think about what words, what quotes, what things I need to remind myself of every day. And to be fair, those two alone could be my personal manifesto. Just those two sentences. I could read those every single day and not have to create something brand new, and they could be my personal manifesto. So, a couple of questions for you, or food for thought. If we can go to the next slide, please. How long do you think it's going to take you to write a personal manifesto? Oh, thanks, Melanie. Oh, and Marsha, thanks. But also, please answer my question. How long do you think it's going to take you to write a personal manifesto? Need time to reflect. Months. You guys, or you girls, I got a good group here. Is there a time? Thank you. Is there a time? Flavilla, you don't count about 30 minutes. You, anyway, a week? Okay, cool. So I don't think that there is a time limit, right? I think it evolves. And like Flavilla said, it's a working, and like Marsha said, sorry, it's a working doc, right? So you might find that actually you can write it in 30 minutes because you already know what it is that you want to say and what it is you need to kind of like to hear every single time. But you might find it takes you months. You know, it might find that actually this doc or this piece that you have takes a lot longer than you expected. And I want you to know that that's okay. There is no time limit to it. I wrote my manifesto when I actually worked with a friend to kind of like pull it together, and we spent a whole day kind of like just brainstorming, figuring out what words make sense, what really hits home, what didn't quite hit, all the rest of it. It took me a lot of time, and I've had the same manifesto for me for the last 4 years, like since I created it, 3.5 years since I created it. I haven't changed it. There's elements that I think, oh, maybe I would change this. Like the piece about brilliance is something that I think I might change because it really means a lot to me. And like my mum obviously has had such a big impact on who I am, but actually it still rings true to me. That doesn't mean that in the future I can't change it. I absolutely might decide to change it. But for the most part, I feel quite blessed that actually, as it stands, I'm quite happy for it to stay as it is. So as you think about creating your personal manifesto, I do want you to think about carving out some time. You deserve it, but also your future self deserves it. For you to carve out some time to say, do you know what? I'm going to spend an hour, 2 hours really figuring out what I think might need to be included in my personal manifesto. And then I'm going to revisit that a week from now, a month from now, 3 months from now, whatever it is. The timeline is yours. I can't dictate it for you, but I want you to be open enough to know that it doesn't have to be done just like that. All right. So we're going to go through some questions that I think it's worth asking yourself as you write or start to think about crafting your personal manifesto. Let's go on to the next slide. So, who are you? Who were you? and who do you want to be? I think it's really important to reflect on who we are now, but also the version of us that got us to where we are now. Whether or not we like the version of us that got us to where we are now, we have to be thankful for that version ever existing, because we wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't for the version of us that we once were. Who do we want to be? The possibilities are endless. And I think it's important that we consider who that future version of you is. Whoever I am in the future, I hope that I remain curious. I hope that I continue to revel in small joys. I hope that I continue to be kind and give myself grace. And so, as you're thinking about crafting this piece, I hope that you'll take some time to consider all spectrums: who you were, who you currently are, and who you want to be. It should actually be in that order: who were you, who are you, who you want to be. But in terms of the way it looked, it didn't look right in terms of like the texts. So I didn't do it that way. Anywho's, in terms of reflecting, I would love you to think about 10 key areas of life, essentially. When I sat down and did some reflection I did it in November, actually. So November is the month in which my mum passed, and some Novembers can just be really hard. So last November, I took some time out to think about the different areas of my life that I wanted to really delve deep into and ask myself like a few different questions about. So let's go into the next slide and I'll break down these different areas. So the first area we have is personal growth. Now, when we think about personal growth, for me, I want you to think about, how are you evolving as an individual? As a whole individual, how are you changing? How are you evolving? When it comes to, Favilla's writing in the chat. Give it to my financial planner. Fair. All right, so when it comes to your relationships, when I think about relationships, I think about all relationships, right? So our relationships, like your love relationships, but your family relationships, your friendships, all the rest of it. The dynamics of those relationships and the roles that it plays in your life, but also the role you play in other people's lives. What does that look like? What did it look like in the past? What does it currently look like? But for the future, what do you want that to look like? Your professional life, the career that you're building as a corporate person, as an entrepreneur, what impact are you making? It doesn't always have to have an impact. Let's not lie. Like, some people are just in it for the money. That's your business. But I like to think about the impact that I am having when it comes to like my professional life. Health and well-being, recognizing the various practices that have helped to keep you balanced, and help to kind of like help you take the steps towards a better physical you, but also a mental you. It's not, when I think about your health and well-being, it's not just about being physically strong or physically well. It's also about you being mentally strong and mentally well. And I don't think there's enough being said about how we navigate those spaces, especially when it comes to our mental wellness. Your hobbies and passions. What enriches your life outside of your work? What keeps you going? What ignites your creativity, your enthusiasm? In the future, what do you want to ignite your creativity and your enthusiasm? Your financial wellness, reflecting on your financial decisions, reflecting on what you've done in the past, what you're doing here, but also what you want to do in the future. I said to myself the other day, like, I'm really proud of where I am now when it comes to my financial wellness. There was a time ago, like when I came out of uni. Listen, me and student overdrafts were an absolute joke. We were best friends in a different way. Like, it's actually, I look back now and I'm like, Ramat, this is ridiculous. But I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And you don't know what you don't know. So giving myself grace and saying, like, the past Ramat yeah, she made some mistakes, but now, like this future Ramat, she's doing all right, you know, like we're doing really nice things. And then I think when you look at your values and beliefs, whatever you believe in, whatever anchors you, essentially, the principles that anchor you and propel you forward, whether you believe in a God, you believe in a higher power, whatever it might be, what did that look like? What does it currently look like? And what would you like it to look like? Creativity and innovation. Listen, I'm all about creativity. I think we need to express ourselves in different ways, and there's no right or wrong way to be creative. And so exploring what that looked like in the past, but also what that could potentially look like in the future is a really good one. And then mindfulness and spirituality, connecting with your inner self, finding peace and like understanding, and then also just learning, like figuring out, you know, how we can pour into that cup of self-knowledge. The version of you that exists today is so much more different from the version of you that existed this time last year. And that's because of the various things that you would have learned about yourself, about the world, etc. So that having that focus on learning is really, really, in my opinion, really important. All right, let's go on to the next slide. So I stole this. Stole is a very strong word. I borrowed these words from James Clear. And he's the author of Atomic Habits. So if you haven't read that book, another good book to dive deep into. And it was all about values. Now, I want you to think about what things you value and who you are as an individual, right? So he has this list of like 50 potential values that you may or may not have. And I want you to consider what values are really important to you, because these values will underline what your personal manifesto ends up being about. Is creativity important to you? Is wealth important to you? Is trustworthiness important to you? Whatever it is, like there's no right or wrong answer. This is about you and you alone. So consider these values as you think about creating your personal manifesto. As I said before, there's no right or wrong way to think about it. But then I want you to also think about, next slide, you know yourself best, right? But who knows you second best? I am very, very, I was going to say lucky, but I don't even think it's lucky. I just feel blessed that I'm in so many great communities and I'm surrounded by so many great people that know me quite well. And even some of those people are in this chat now, right? So I can lean on those people. And I want you to also think about how you lean on others to understand yourself better. There's a task there's an activity that we get people to do, like whilst I'm doing coaching sometimes, where I ask them to ask 3 people that they're close to them what their 3 strengths are, or what they think their 3 top values are, and you share the list of values and why. Because there's no point me saying, Flav, what's my biggest strength? And she tells me, oh, curiosity, but she doesn't tell me why. And I'm like, really? Is that me? Like, it is me, but like, I need you to also understand why. So I want to challenge you to ask others and lean on your communities to find out what they think are your strengths, or what they think are the things that you value. You may be surprised. You may not be surprised. But either way, it may give you an insight into who you are as an individual that can then give you some of that foundation that you need to create your personal manifesto. Let's go to next slide. All right. As I said, my mum had this thing about me being brilliant. And I want to encourage you to think about why you are all brilliant. Like every single one of you in the room now and anyone watching back. Why are you brilliant? It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need it to be anything huge or anything small. And I don't even like using the term big and small in this context, but because I'll explain why. When I think about how I felt like moments, like the weeks after like my mum passed, I would have written like, I am brilliant because I got out of bed. Because there were days when, I wasn't getting out of bed because I couldn't get out of bed. Like I physically and mentally couldn't do anything because I didn't understand what the world was and why the world would continue existing without her. It just didn't make sense. But I managed to do it, right? And so in those moments, I would have said, like, I'm brilliant because I managed to get out of bed today, or I managed to go for a walk today. Sometime last year, I would have said, I'm brilliant because I did a TEDx talk, right? So there's no kind of like big or small, but whatever it is that you choose to write in this sentence can easily be turned into your own personal manifesto. So it could be, I'm brilliant because I give myself grace to see myself as I am. That could become your personal manifesto, that one line, and that's absolutely fine. So I want to encourage each and every one of you. We don't really have time now. I'd say like put something in the chat as to why you think you're brilliant. I don't want to give you that pressure because it's something that I think people need to sometimes sit with. Some people can do it like that, but sometimes I actually think you need to sit with it. And usually I'd have a playlist where I'd be like playing music and you'd all be like jamming and then writing down why you're brilliant. But for the meantime, I just want you to consider this question as a fallback. If you really, really try to do your manifesto and you're like, I just can't do it, I want this to be your fallback. I am brilliant because, and let that affirmation become your personal manifesto. All right. Final slide, I think. Ultimately, listen, you are all brilliant for joining this workshop. Speak on it, Aisha, speak on it. Love that for all of us. So ultimately, the power is in your hands. I am your Chief Encouragement Officer, but I can't do the work for you. You have to do it yourselves. I'm here to support like all day, every day, but I can't do the work for you, right? So think about your personal manifesto. Think about something that you can create that can ground you, something that can hold you accountable, something that can give you direction in a time of need. But ultimately, think about something that you owe to your future self. I look back at Ramat 2020 and think, thank God you took that day to write your personal manifesto, because I've needed it every day since. And it's made me stronger as an individual, but it's also enabled me to be true to myself. I don't particularly like telling people to be the best versions of themselves, because the best, it's hard to be the best every day. Like, who's got time? Sometimes let me sleep, sometimes I don't want to. The best is me sleeping. But you can always be true to yourself. Always. Like, whether that means you need sleep, whether you need to play, whether you need to like go out, have drinks with your girls, whether you need to work hard, whatever it is, you can always be true to yourself. So you owe it to your future self to write a personal manifesto. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't need to be your words even. You can borrow it. Like, go and find your favorite lyric. Whatever it is, make it your personal manifesto and revisit it, because you absolutely have to revisit it over. It's like a muscle that you need to exercise. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with me. There's time for Q&A. I think you can like put Q&A in the thing in the box, or you can just ask questions in the chat. But yeah, it's been great. This is